there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with some continuation videos for the Gathering Magic modern deck that I ran last week and said I'd play some more on my channel. So finally getting around to doing that. This is kind of an updated version to that list. I'm only running 3 Path to Exiles in this one. It was kind of an awkward card with as many Lightning Bolts and Lightning Helixes. I definitely don't want to get rid of those cards because this allows us to really utilize Chandra's Phoenix. This card's insane in the deck. I mean, I almost want to splash for black for Kolgan's Command, and that's another way you can get Phoenix back to your hand just by doing 2 damage to your opponent. So it almost is like the command having 3 modes. Get a Phoenix back from your graveyard, 2 damage to your opponent, and make them discard a card, which is pretty cool. But the gist of the deck is still the same. You're going to try to lock people out with Blood Moons and Lightning Bolts and Relics. It's just this deck preys on what we consider unfair decks. Anything that uses Graveyard, we have Natural Hate with the Relic of Progenitus. Anything that uses a greedy mana base, we have Natural Hate through the Blood Moon. We have the just really good cards in the form of Lightning Helix and Lightning Bolt. Lightning Helix makes this deck a lot more consistent against Burn. We have package against Burn with Dragon's Claw and Core Firewalkers in the sideboard. Core Firewalker is pretty good for gaining life because you have a gazillion ways or gazillion red spells in this in your deck as well. Wear Tear is a very efficient card in this in the metagame right now. It destroys any enchantment or artifact that's a problem. And then Molten Rain is really good with Chandra's Phoenix. It's another way to get it back. And you can destroy it on basic lands, so good against Tron, good against... I even bring it in versus Grixis. Sometimes you can lock them out, and you can actually destroy their basic lands if you're ready to Blood Moon, and then lock them out of like a blue source, for example, or a black source, and then Blood Moon their other ones away. Still 2 Boils. There's a lot of island-based decks, so I thought Boil would be great to... It's instant speed, which is awesome. And then Sowing Salt, which has been really good in the testing. Again, this is just Tron hate. There's a lot of Tron. So I've cut all of the dragons, Stormbreath dragons, for the Chandra's Phoenix. I just think that they work better. Like Chandra's Phoenix end up getting out more damage. You need like a 3-drop. Blood Moon isn't usually enough. And the cool thing about Volcanic Fallout is it doesn't affect Chandra's Phoenix that much because it just dies and comes back. And that's fine, and that's why I'm not using Anger of Gods anymore, because it does exile my Chandra's Phoenix, and Chandra's Phoenix is a really pivotal piece to this deck. This actually ends up being more like a tempo deck, and instead of Delver of Secrets being your tempo card, it's Chandra's Phoenix. And then cards like Koth the Hammer and Ajani Vengeance are great in this deck. Ajani's Vengeance is especially good with Chandra's Phoenix, a way to get it back. Chandra herself is pretty good. Very underrated card. People have asked about the new Origins card. I don't know. The new Origins card might actually work in this deck. It can be a little bit hard to get Chandra to flip, though. You have to wait an entire turn for her. And in this format with a lot of Lightning Bolts, Path to Exiles, etc., that can be very hard. So, in fact, I played the Chandra in the pre-release. 3 of my opponents, three different opponents had a Chandra. And she was absolutely useless. She did a whopping 2 damage to me in 1 game, and that was it. That was the most it was able to do. And yeah, just not a really good card. Even in limited, it wasn't nearly as spectacular as what people would think it was going to be. So I don't think it has a place in this deck. Hoping for a good Chandra out of Battle for Zendikar, and one that's actually more playable, because I think that she's one of my more favorite Planeswalkers. I don't know. I'm not the greatest fan of red. Like if I were to look at my decks over the past history of my Magic career, I predominantly build green and black decks. Those seem to be my 2 colors, mainly black. I looked at my commander decks and they're all black. And people have asked me to show commander decks. I'm going to still work on getting a better video camera. I think that the iPad actually tapes pretty good videos, so maybe I'll do some deck techs for some commander game or my commander decks. I've got quite a few of them, and I'll show you those. But again, this is more, the channel is Rogue Deck Builder. I try to build, I'm a Johnny first and a Spike secondary, but that Spike mentality in me is quite strong. I'm very competitive. So I like to build brews as competitive as possible. So things like Pauper and Commander and things like that sometimes don't really resonate with me as much as Modern and Standard and anything like a limited base draft or sealed. by far, Modern, I would say, is my favorite deck, and right now this is my go-to deck with the red, white, or Boros walkers. My own little take on Scred. Without Scred, so it's the Scredless Scred Red is what you'd like to call it, and Koth of the Hammer is just still amazing. This card's incredibly underrated in the format right now. So again, I don't know if more Batterskulls or Wormcoil Engines. I'm starting to think that Batterskull is better than Wormcoil Engine because of Path to Exile being a problem. And they usually like to keep in Path to Exile now for Chandra's Phoenix, so it's just more hate for Wormcoil Engine. And what I used to do is that if they kept in their Path to Exiles, you'd have the Stormbreath Dragons. I just didn't think the Stormbreath Dragon was that impactful. There's a lot of times I was able to get out a quick Stormbreath Dragon with like a Mind Stone and a Koth of the Hammer -2, able to Monstrosity the Stormbreath Dragon, but it just didn't seem to really pan out the way that I liked it. And it's just every time I've played Chandra's Phoenix, it just seems to do a lot more damage and to give that little tempo feel that the deck wants than the Stormbreath Dragon offered. So that's kind of my reasoning for that. So we'll play some games and see how well this deck will work. Again, this is going to do very good against combo and greedy mana-based decks, or unfair decks use graveyards, or try to do just shenanigans. Even heavy creature-based deck this does well against. So Scred really envelopes a lot of the metagame here. It takes care of a lot of different decks. We do struggle against like heavy control decks, and that's where the Scred version was a lot better. Through the Scrying Sheets being able to draw you more cards, and that's maybe we need to put like an Outpost Siege or something to make up for the Scrying Sheets. But for now, I think that the deck is performing quite well. So we'll play some more decks. So this is enough rambling. This has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.